Imagine a world with no iPhone, no App Store, no sleek MacBook, and no company that inspired millions to think different. It's almost impossible to picture modern life without these innovations. But behind them stood one man whose relentless pursuit of perfection transformed technology, business, and the way we communicate forever. His name was Steve Jobs. To some, he was a visionary genius. To others, he was an uncompromising perfectionist who demanded the impossible. He inspired employees, challenged entire industries, and turned bold ideas into products that changed the world. Yet his journey was anything but smooth. He experienced rejection, failure, public humiliation, and even being fired from the very company he created. Most people know Steve Jobs as the face of Apple, but few know the remarkable story behind his success. How did an adopted child from California become one of the most influential entrepreneurs in history? What drove him to keep pushing the boundaries of innovation? And how did he return from defeat to build one of the most valuable companies the world has ever seen? In this video, we'll uncover the extraordinary life of Steve Jobs, from his humble beginnings and the birth of Apple in a small garage to his dramatic fall, inspiring comeback, and the revolutionary products that reshaped the digital age. We'll also explore the leadership style, creativity, and determination that made him a global icon. This is not just the story of Apple's success. It's the story of a man who dared to think differently, challenged the impossible, and proved that one vision can change the world. This is Steve Jobs, the genius behind Apple's success. In 1955, in San Francisco, California, a baby boy was born to two university students who felt they were not ready to raise a child. They made the difficult decision to place him for adoption. That baby was Steve Jobs. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a loving middle-class couple who raised him in Mountain View, California, an area that would later become famous as Silicon Valley. From an early age, Steve showed an unusual curiosity. His father, Paul, was a skilled mechanic who loved repairing cars and building things with his hands. Together, they spent countless hours in the family garage, where Paul taught young Steve how to use tools, fix electronics, and appreciate craftsmanship. Those lessons shaped Steve's lifelong obsession with creating products that were not only functional, but beautifully designed. Steve was an intelligent child, but he often struggled in school because he disliked rules and traditional teaching methods. He preferred asking questions, experimenting, and learning through experience. Teachers quickly realized that he thought differently from other students. Instead of memorizing answers, Steve wanted to understand why things worked the way they did. During his teenage years, Steve met another brilliant young electronics enthusiast named Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was an engineering genius who could design complex computer circuits with ease. Steve Jobs, on the other hand, had a remarkable talent for recognizing great ideas and imagining how they could change people's lives. Together, they formed a partnership that would reshape history. After finishing high school, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Oregon. However, he soon realized that his parents were spending their life savings on an education he didn't truly value. After just one semester, he officially dropped out. But dropping out didn't mean he stopped learning. He continued attending classes that interested him, including a calligraphy course. At first glance, studying beautiful handwriting seemed completely unrelated to technology. Yet years later, when Apple created the Macintosh computer, Jobs insisted it include elegant fonts and typography. That decision forever changed personal computing, proving that creativity often comes from unexpected places. Reaching for deeper meaning, Jobs traveled across India in 1974. He explored spirituality, meditation, and Eastern philosophy. The journey profoundly influenced his thinking. He returned to America believing that simplicity, focus, and intuition were just as important as logic and technical knowledge. These beliefs would later become central to Apple's philosophy. Back in California, Steve worked briefly at Atari, a video game company. Although talented, he was known for being intense and demanding. Yet his passion for innovation never faded. In 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak decided to build their own personal computer. Working in the Jobs family's garage, the two friends assembled the first Apple computer by hand. Jobs convinced local computer stores to buy their machines before they had even completed production. It was a bold gamble, but it worked. Their company, Apple Computer, was officially born. The Apple I sold modestly, but it was the Apple II that changed everything. Released in 1977, it became one of the first highly successful mass-produced personal computers. At a time when computers were seen as machines only for scientists or large companies, Apple showed ordinary families and students that computers could be useful in everyday life. Sales exploded. Investors rushed to support the young company, and Steve Jobs became one of the youngest millionaires in America before his 25th birthday. But wealth wasn't his ultimate goal. He wanted to build products that people loved. Jobs believed technology should be simple enough for anyone to use. While many companies focused only on technical specifications, Apple focused equally on design, user experience, and beauty. This philosophy separated Apple from its competitors. In the early 1980s, Jobs became fascinated by graphical user interfaces after visiting Xerox PARC, where researchers had developed technology allowing users to interact with computers using icons and a mouse. Jobs immediately recognized its enormous potential. This inspiration led to the creation of the Macintosh, introduced in 1984 with one of the most famous television commercials ever made. Directed by Ridley Scott, the advertisement portrayed Apple as a revolutionary force challenging conformity. When Steve Jobs unveiled the Macintosh, audiences were amazed. It spoke, displayed graphics, and offered a user-friendly interface unlike anything consumers had seen before. Although initial sales were slower than expected, the Macintosh laid the foundation for modern personal computing. Despite Apple's growing success, tensions within the company increased. Jobs was known for demanding perfection and often clashed with executives. His management style inspired some employees while frustrating others. In 1985, following a power struggle with CEO John Sculley, the Apple board removed Steve Jobs from his leadership role. Soon afterward, Jobs resigned from the company he had helped create. For many people, this would have been the end of the story. Losing control of Apple was devastating. Jobs later described it as one of the most painful experiences of his life. Yet it became the turning point that shaped his greatest achievements. Instead of giving up, Jobs founded a new company called Nexty. Its computers were technologically advanced and beautifully designed, though too expensive for widespread commercial success. Nevertheless, Nexty developed innovative software that would later become extremely valuable. Around the same time, Jobs purchased a small animation studio from filmmaker George Lucas. He renamed it Pixar. Many believed he had made a costly mistake, but Jobs saw enormous potential in computer animation. Years of hard work finally paid off in 1995 when Pixar released Toy Story, the world's first fully computer-animated feature film. The movie became a global sensation, winning audiences of all ages and transforming the animation industry forever. Pixar soon produced one blockbuster after another, including Finding Nemo, Monsters, Inc., and The Incredibles. Steve Jobs had become a major figure in both technology and entertainment. Meanwhile, Apple struggled without its visionary leader. The company released confusing products, lost market share, and came dangerously close to bankruptcy. In 1996, Apple made a surprising decision. It purchased Nexty, bringing Steve Jobs back to the company he had founded. At first, he served as an advisor, but within a year, he became Apple's interim CEO. Jobs immediately simplified Apple's product lineup. Instead of producing dozens of confusing models, he focused the company's energy on a handful of exceptional products. He believed that saying no to hundreds of ideas allowed the very best ideas to flourish. In 1998, Apple introduced the colorful iMac, Its bold design attracted millions of customers and restored excitement around the Apple brand. The company's financial recovery had begun. But Steve Jobs wasn't finished. In 2001, Apple introduced the iPod, a small music player capable of holding thousands of songs. Combined with the iTunes Store, it revolutionized the music industry and changed how people purchased and listened to music. Then came the product that would redefine the modern world. On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco and announced that Apple was introducing three revolutionary products: a widescreen iPod, a mobile phone, and an internet communication device. After repeating the list several times, he smiled and revealed they were all the same product. The iPhone. The audience erupted in applause. The iPhone transformed the smartphone industry forever. It combined elegant design with powerful software and an intuitive touchscreen interface. Soon, millions of people carried tiny computers in their pockets, using them for communication, photography, navigation, entertainment, education, and business. The following year, Apple launched the App Store, allowing developers worldwide to create applications for the iPhone. This created an entirely new digital economy and opened opportunities for countless entrepreneurs. In 2010, Apple unveiled another revolutionary product, the iPad. Many critics doubted anyone needed a tablet computer. Yet once again, Steve Jobs proved that consumers often don't know what they want until they see it. Behind every Apple product was Jobs' relentless attention to detail. He cared about everything, from packaging and typography to materials and presentation. He believed every interaction with a product should feel special. However, Steve Jobs' personal journey was becoming increasingly difficult. In 2003, he was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Despite undergoing treatment and several surgeries, he continued leading Apple for years, introducing groundbreaking products even while facing serious health challenges. As his condition worsened, Jobs gradually stepped back from daily leadership. In August 2011, he resigned as Apple CEO, recommending Tim Cook as his successor. Just weeks later, on October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of just 56. The news shocked the world. Tributes poured in from presidents, business leaders, engineers, artists, and millions of ordinary people whose lives had been touched by Apple's products. Steve Jobs left behind far more than a successful company. He changed how people communicate, work, create, learn, and connect with one another. His philosophy, that technology should be simple, elegant, and human-centered, continues to influence designers and innovators across the globe. Perhaps his most famous advice came during a commencement speech at Stanford University. Reflecting on his extraordinary journey, he encouraged people to trust themselves, pursue meaningful work, and never settle for an ordinary life. Steve Jobs' story reminds us that failure is not the end. Curiosity can become a superpower, and true innovation comes from the courage to think differently. From a small family garage to changing the lives of billions of people, his journey remains one of the most inspiring success stories in modern history. Steve Jobs once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." His life proved those weren't just inspiring words. They were the principle by which he lived. From an adopted child with big dreams to the visionary behind Apple, Steve Jobs transformed not only the technology industry, but also the way billions of people communicate, work, learn, and create. His journey was filled with setbacks, rejection, and personal struggles, yet he never stopped believing in the power of innovation and imagination. Today, every time someone unlocks a smartphone, edits a video on a computer, or downloads an app, they are experiencing part of the legacy Steve Jobs helped create. His influence continues to inspire entrepreneurs, designers, engineers, and dreamers around the world. If you enjoyed this journey through the life of Steve Jobs, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story about the extraordinary people who shaped history. Thank you for watching, and remember, history isn't just about the past. It's about the ideas, courage, and vision that continue to shape our future. See you in the next video.